everybody, and welcome to A Balanced Life. I am so excited about the segment that we are having today. Being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart, and today we're going to talk to our guests and our panelists and get some tips and information about what it means to go from pillow to post. Now, most of you are familiar with the old adage, pillar to post, Pillar. But as an entrepreneur, we go from dream state to dream state on our pillows, trying to figure out how we're going to run this business. What is it going to look like? Do I have the mental capacity? Do I have the emotional well-being? Am I in the space that I need to be in to truly become an entrepreneur? So welcome to Pillar to Post. So today, as we are getting ready to have this conversation and dialogue, I want to bring in all of our guests. And this is the reason why. Sometimes you have to learn from the oldest of us to the millennials among us. And as our guests come in, we're going to have this bit of a conversation related to how do we get started in business? What does business look like? How do we go from one thing to the next? So I'm bringing in Corey Briscoe, Managing Partner and COO of ABCD and Company, and then also Dr. Tierney, Life Coach and author of Leveling Up. So these two individuals, have been with us for a while now. And I know that as I get your texts, as I see your tweets, as you guys are talking to us on social media, they've really become two of your faves in a space that everybody wants to hear a male point of view. Mm-hmm. Hey, Corey. Mm-hmm. We are doing good. So when you get to that space, Corey, of what it looks like to be an entrepreneur, sometimes it isn't really easy. And I know that Dr. Tierney has talked to us from time to time about what it means to level up and how do we get out of our own way and become the best that we can be. So Corey, can you share, and I'm talking to specifically men because Corey is a male and that voice is so important to our audience. Corey, when you thought about what it would look like to run your own business, what are some of the things that you can share with our male audience about taking a deep breath and just getting to it?
Doc, it's such a interesting conversation because I think one of the things that we think of as men, we're trained to be providers. We're trained to be people who are thinking about the holistic, whether it's our families, our immediate families, families at large. We're trained to think do an analysis of the risk and determine. But I've learned that sometimes you just got to do. And a part of that is being able to know what's inside of you and who you are and what you're called to do. So I think the first thing is this inward reveal or inward look and saying, what am I called to do? And what am I supposed to be doing right now? There are seasons of our lives where we are called to do so many things, but when we're able to stop and pause and really say, look, I, in this season, am supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, and we can put action behind it with commitment, that makes all the difference. And I have found that in my own life and talking to other men and brothers who are of like mind, that sometimes we have to stop doing the deep analysis and just go for it. Sometimes we have to pause ourselves and full stop and just say, you know what? Despite what I think, despite what the circumstances, I am equipped, I am emboldened. And if I can just take the one first step, oftentimes all the other steps to follow will be right there in sync.
Mm-hmm. You're interesting because you mentioned something about being in sync and oftentimes finding your tribe, the people that you need to connect to in business. How difficult is it for young men who are trying to start their own business, young men who have skill, who have desire, who are looking forward to doing something different, or maybe even just adding a little bit of extra to their income? Why is it important to have like-minded people around? Because sometimes people who are around you are not always the people who are with you.
Boy, that's a good word there. Yeah. If I was in church, I'd say amen. I find that when we look at our tribes and our ecosystems, the reality is who we are is often magnified by who we are with. Right. And specifically as men, the reality is when we look at the coloring of our lives, we are influenced by everyone around us, whether it's our rearing, whether it is who we associate with. And it's not to say it's different from women, but I find that women tend to be a lot more communal than men. We tend to grasp, look, and then act, where women tend to, there's more conversation, there's more time to really understand community. And so I have found that in this place that we are as men, as a society, where we are really struggling with what manhood is. We either say you're either too tough or you're too soft or you're somewhere in between. And we have to have those critical conversations where we really are really just taking in and understanding who we are. And a part of that is understanding who we are with. I tell people all the time, when people say, I know who I am, but can't fully identify their circle, you actually don't know who you are, because the reality is we are colored by the people around us. And I have found that our tribe as a whole, our tribe as men, really influence us in a way where we either stay stagnant or a way that we push beyond obstacles that society has given us or obstacles that we ourselves have created in a mindset.
Okay, Corey. So I have another question for you, because one of the things that you mentioned was being able to have men around you. Now, in our society, in our community, there are young men and men of middle age and men who are older who have not always had a male role model in their space. And so when it comes to selecting a man, specifically a Black man, to aid and guide and assist, what are a few things that you can say to people who want to be mentors, individuals who are coaches, people who just don't have a father figure, a cousin, an uncle, some brother around the corner who can guide them? What are a few of the qualities? Because we talk about balance, and balance is a very big part of being able to thrive and survive, is having a well-rounded group of men in your space. How would you select, or you recommend that selection process?
Well, Dr. Jacquie, I tell people like this: we are thoughtful when we pick our doctors. We are thoughtful when we pick our places of worship. We must be just as thoughtful as we pick the people who will speak into our lives via text message, social media, what we do, who we hang out. And a part of that process is the first analysis of self. Before I could pick a mentor, before I could decide to mentor people, I had to pause and say, you know what, who is Corey? I'm a man of faith. I'm a man of service. I'm a man of integrity. I'm a man of leadership. Once I identified my core guiding principles, it was so much easier to then look for people who had like-minded synergies and were able to guide me as mentorship. I think another thing that I say all the time, it's easy to look at people's social media profiles and determine that you think you know a person. But I say it all the time, get to the depths of people. You know, how do they act when, you greet them at an event? I tell people it's a lot different when they're off camera, right? The social media is great because it helps us to connect to one another, but it's also a hindrance because we start to believe that everything that glitters is gold, and it just ain't true. And so I tell people, when you are trying to decide who it is that you want to be mentored from, right? Start inward. Start looking at what you want to see. What are the gaps? What are the places where you need to be, that need to be fostered and cultivated? And then I tell people, I know you didn't ask this, Dr. J, but I'm going to say it. Sometimes before we step into the period of mentorship, we need to ask the question whether we need to be mentored, because everyone is not cut out to mentor.
Now, those are really powerful words. Dr. Tierney, let's bring you in for a second and have a conversation about this for a minute. Corey just said that not everyone is meant to be a mentor. And in your work as a life coach, you have seen and talked to people who are trying to, as Corey said, pull themselves together. How does balance, Dr. Tierney, play a role in being ready to not only lead yourself in business, but to be in business with other people?
Absolutely. Corey, you have a big big old amen corner from over here. Everything that you were saying, I'm pretty much just going to add to it, in the sense that something that I like to say is that the coach has a coach. I try to make sure as a coach that I'm not pouring from a dirty cup. That I'm doing that internal work that Corey spoke about, and that I'm looking inward to make sure that I'm taking care of all of that concerneth me before I try to assist my brother and my sister along their journey. And sometimes what we do is we can get a bit of a hubris going here, and that, oh, I'm going to help you with yours. And no, don't worry about mine, or I'm perfect. Or, we forget to get the speck out of our own eye before we try to take the log out of our brother or our sister's eyes. And so this is where balance is so important, to make sure that we are taking care of the things that we need to in our lives, particularly when you're in business. I tell people I work harder now than I ever did on my 9 to 5. I work so much harder now. It's so much more rewarding. It's so much more fulfilling. But the first thing that I had to do, again, going back to what, Corey said, I had to look internally, and I had to define my why. Why do I want to do this? Why is this important, to me? If it's just about making money, if it's just about you don't want to come under the authority, of having a supervisor or anything like that, then that's not going to be enough to sustain you as you're out here walking out entrepreneurship, particularly in a mentorship, leadership capacity. You have to make sure that you have done that internal work and you're maintaining your balance so that you can continue to be effective in whatever role that you're serving in.
Dr. Tierney, now, I'm praying for our audience, because what you just stated is making everybody feel some type of way. And I know that as they watch this show, they're going to be in their feelings from week to week. You said you cannot pour from a dirty cup.
Cannot.
And if you don't like walking by the mirror and seeing yourself and saying, oh, I need to lose this weight, oh, I need to get my act together. When you start to look at all of the past, all of the pain, all the struggles that are in that cup, why do you believe it's difficult for people to take that introspective look? Because having a good introspective look can lead you to the role of balance and get you on the right pathway.
It's something, I guess sorry, not sorry, but it's one of those things where we have to sometimes get in our feelings, get in our own stuff. I have to look inward at me, and I'm just going to call myself to the carpet. There are times where I had to stop and say, okay, now Tierney, now hold on now. Now that's not, no ma'am, we're not going to go there, because then let's say the next day, a client comes and they're talking about the things that they're working through. And if I haven't dealt with it within myself, I'll then start to connect with them in a way that's not healthy. I'll start to guide them in a way that they don't need to go, because I'm pouring from these past hurts or traumas or things that I myself haven't dealt with. If I'm still walking past the mirror saying, yeah, you need to work on this, you need to work on that. When I hear a client coming with negative self-talk, I won't be able to help them not do that anymore, help them to develop a positive self-talk if I have a negative self-talk. So that's why it's critical that we have to make sure that we're not pouring from a dirty cup, because if we're doing that, then we're just pouring more hurt, more pain, more negativity, onto the people that we're supposed to be helping and leading. Now I will say this, it doesn't feel good. This is not something that feels good. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. I spent a number of years working out my own stuff, so this isn't something that I just woke up overnight and was like, boom, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to coach people, and that's what I'm going to do. No, I had to go lay on the couch first and deal with some things with my therapist, with my coach, and with my Jesus, and work those things out before I could really be effective in doing what I do and make sure that I'm not causing any harm, to anyone. So yeah. It's not a comfortable, thing, but anything in life worth having, is it ever really comfortable? Can you level up from your comfort zone? So I know this may be a hard word, but sorry, not really sorry.
Hurting people really can't serve well, and it's difficult for people to hear. We want to, as we were talking about, go from pillar to post or pillar to post. We want to run to this thing and run to that thing, and thinking that we're going to find our zone, find the niche that we're supposed to be in, find that space where everything is fine and we're going to be fulfilled. But as we're listening and as we're learning, we're discovering that as individuals, we have to make sure we have our own house in order. When we come back after the break, I want to bring in Corey's partners, because I think it's important that we begin to understand generationally how balance matters. Balance is a very big part of our everyday living, and sometimes we have a tendency to sleep on what it means to get enough rest, what it means to have time just for yourself. And when you work in a group, sometimes it's not easy. When we're back after the break.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everyone. Let me tell you, this conversation and dialogue that Corey and Dr. Tierney just took us through, I know you're in your feelings. You're wearing them on your sleeve. You're feeling some kind of way. Hey, tell us all about it. Reach out to us in text messages, in the chat. Get with us on social media. Share with us why this conversation has been important and relevant to you. I want to bring in the rest of A, B, C, and D right now with Corey Briscoe, Brittany Calhoun Briscoe, and Derisha Moore. And we're missing our A today, our Amber Dozier. Hey, A, B, C, and D.
Hello.
It sounds weird to call your name without the A. So we have B, C, and D today from A, B, C, D, and Company. And let me tell you, this group of millennials truly has an understanding of what it means to be balanced. And the reason that we're having this conversation with this group today is because I know you're out there. I'm going to start a business with my friends. I'm going to start a business with my family. And these are the young people who can tell you the ups and the downside of being in business with your friends. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks for having us, Dr. J.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm going to start with Derisha, because Derisha, when I think about the role that you play, and I want you to go around, I'm going to start with you. Tell everybody who you are and what you do for the company. Then we're going to go to Brittany and then come back to Corey. So Derisha.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Derisha, and I'm the Managing Partner and Chief Marketing Officer here at ABCD and Company. So all things related to how we engage with our target customers and clients is in my auspice. So I'm leading that with a dynamic team and excited to be here today.
Miss Brittany.
Hello, everyone. I am Brittany Briscoe. I am Chief Creative Officer and Managing Partner here at ABCD and Company. It is such a pleasure to be here today. And here at ABCD and Company, I am what you call the brand snob. I literally, from internal and external with our clients and to ABCD's own brand, I am the keeper of the brand. I make sure that we stay on target on messaging, visually, and how we come across to our stakeholders.
And Corey Briscoe.
And I'm the Chief Operating Officer at ABCD and Company, and I oversee talent management, day-to-day operations, finance here at the firm. And so I tell people all the time, they spend the money, I manage the money. They go and get the clients. I make sure at the end of the day, they have the resources to do the great work that we do.
Thank you for sharing that information. Now, there's one other partner. Her name is Amber. And I want you to tell us what Amber does, because the four of you bring to the table what is needed for ABCD and Company to be successful. Corey, will you share Amber's role?
Absolutely. Amber is vital to our firm. Amber's our Chief Strategy Officer. And I say every firm needs an Amber. And as she's not here because she's doing that vital work right now with a client and internally with our teams. But Amber's job is to think long-term. Short-term is to think about how we approach our work. It's to think about what does ABCD look like in 6 months and in 6 years. And so that role is critical to our operations on a day-to-day, but it's critical, as Dr. Tyrion and I talked about earlier, is getting out of our cells and doing the real work.
So when you think about the makeup and the design of your company and everybody on screen sharing this information with us, why and how did you select what everybody was going to do? Because it's not easy when you're thinking about how do I balance a company. And Corey, I feel for you, dude. I mean, you're the only guy in the company. And so I know how that dynamic can work from time to time. And oftentimes individuals find it difficult to work with individuals who they know well. Now, you guys, for our audience, these young people went to college together. They are, in business together. They are in community leadership together. And we'll talk a little later about some of the things, how you balance your company with civic engagement. But when you think of the balance and the selection, who decided who was going to do what? Because getting those roles right without having the hiccups later down the road is a very important part to being balanced in business.
I'll start. It's funny. Sorry. This is a really passionate question because as a struggling visionary, sometimes you want to be all things to all people. And so I think as an entrepreneur, most times you do have a vision, and that vision can be very grand and very big, and finding the right partnerships and people to connect to make that vision come to life is so vital. And I love the conversation earlier about figuring out your why. That was something that we were very clear about individually. And so when we were talking about what everyone should do, although the roles have evolved since then, it still connects to our why and why we pursued entrepreneurship. But I would also say it also is connected to why ABCD exists, because sometimes our purpose is connected to something so much bigger, and it gives you the ability to stay focused. So I would say it was the ability to understand your why, our why individually, and then how that connected to the larger goal of the company, because they too can coexist.
Now that's an interesting word. So Corey, did you want to add to that before I ask about the clashing? Because coexisting is not easy in business.
No, give me the clashing. Give me the clashing.
The clashing. So clashing is a very important part of learning to become balanced, because you do have to figure out how the rubber meets the road in your organization. And so personality-wise, as you said before, the beginning, the middle, and the end, how does all of this work? And where do the clashes come in business? But how do you, again, make sure the big picture stays the big picture?
Jerisha would argue and says this often when we see friends and stuff like this. People always imagine that Amber, Brittany, myself, and Jerisha, we never argue and we're these peaceful people. But as Jerisha says, ABCD throws down. And we do that, and we say that because the reality is simply this. The best firms, the best businesses, the best concepts have tension. It's just healthy tension. It's tension on what excellence looks like. It's tension on what direction we should take. It's tension on philosophy and guiding principles. So when I think of, the clashing, oh my Lord, Dr. Jacquie said earlier that I was the only male. I am the only male partner in the firm. And for the longest, I was the only male in the firm. Excited to say, we have since hired, we're 15 strong, and we did bring some more testosterone to the group so I wouldn't be ganged up on. But the reality is when you come from different walks of life, right? When you have different end goals, right? All of those things affect how you see immediate problems in front of you, right? Are we exiting? Are we going to sell the business in 10 years? Are people going to be here lifelong? All of those decisions affect what day-to-day looks like, what things we attribute to success, what we think is our next steps as a firm. And so I would argue a lot of our clashing, we didn't have those types of clashing, but we did have clashing on approach, because you got someone, Brittany's from Connecticut, Amber's from Chicago, I'm a Southern boy from Charleston, and Dorisha's from Cleveland, and you bring those personalities and the passion behind that, and we're naturally saying, we should go this way. And so we're taking that moment to say, okay, let's seek to understand. Let's actually actively listen and not listen to just respond. And then let's really make sure that we're aligned with our vision. And I found that as we have grown, it's so much more dynamic. As we brought people onto our own executive team, we brought another male into the executive team, praise the Lord, hallelujah, glory to God. And that helped also changing dynamics because then they could see it from a different lens. And so for me, composition of your team is important. It changes dynamics. For me, understanding end goals and state is important because it helps you alleviate some of those things. And then ground rules. Dr. Jacquie taught us this. I tell people this all the time. To be balanced is to also understand someone's perspective. And that for us has changed the game on how we interact with each other.
So this brings me to Brittany. Because Brittany, you are the individual, as you stated, with your job description, your title, and your role. You seem like the creative and the peacekeeper. When you're bringing on these additional persons, Brittany, into the company, how do you balance having other personality types in your space, especially the space that the four of you created together? What does that look like for you when you're mentally and emotionally processing additional onboarding?
I think it's so funny that you called me out. That is completely me. I would say the culture of your organization matters. From your onboarding, many companies and organizations just bring people on and throw them into the pan and hope they don't burn. We take a completely different approach here at ABC Company, and our goal is to make sure that you not only understand your role, but understand your part in the ABC magic, if that makes sense. It's very important that they feel the passion, that they become champions of the brand, of the company. If we don't start there, the people that they're dealing with externally, our clients, our stakeholders, they're not going to have a genuine interaction, or a passionate one for that matter, with our team. So that is the crux of making sure that that whole bringing on people into the space of what we began, and also making sure they understand the story and the why behind the partners, and the vision, and that they catch the vision so that moving forward, they can then run with it and bring others into the fold as we grow the company.
I want to bring in Dr. Tierney into this dialogue that the three of us are having, because a lot of what I hear you talking about is what it looks like to level up within your own company. And oftentimes that isn't easy. So Dr. Tierney, when you're listening to what these young people are saying, and they have what I've always coined groupthink, and the health that comes along with being around like-minded people. In your work as a life coach, Dr. Tierney, how does their dynamic benefit others who could glean and learn from their experience?
Absolutely. One thing that Corey said, that it's something that I say all the time: seek first to understand before we try to be understood. Oftentimes when we are interacting with people, and this could be in business, this could be our families, we often go into it with the goal of, I want them to understand me and what I'm saying, or my vantage point, when really we should first seek to understand the other person, understand what their perspective is, what it is that they're bringing to the table. And when we do that, we give ourselves a beat to first, as Corey said, actively listen. And then maybe some of the things that, happen, some of the kerfuffles that might, happen really wouldn't even happen because we understand where that person is coming from and we understand the value that they're bringing to the table. And then we are honoring that. We're honoring their perspective. We're honoring the value that they bring, and we can see the beauty, in it. And when you're creating, when you're doing business from that space where you're valuing within, or how I like to say it, you value up, you value down, you value all around, then that is going to make for a successful, thriving business when you're just taking those few little moments to just understand each other and show each other that value and that honor. It will always radiate outward from what you have within there.
So for each of you who are watching, for those of you who are trying to figure out what does balance look like for you as an entrepreneur, whether you're going to work with an individual or you're going to work with family, if you're going to work with friends, it's going to be one of you or 10 of you. Each of you has to decide for yourself what balance looks like for you, and then make certain that you stand firm in that space, because it's easy for other voices to come in. It's easier for voices to try to sway you from the direction in which you want to go. This conversation has been nothing short of exciting, number one. It's been inviting, number two, and it has provided us with a level of understanding that you have to be engaged. I cannot express this enough, how important it is for you to be a part of what you're doing. You cannot take this embryonic stage of a business and decide you're just going to let other people figure out for you what it is you need to do. I want to do one more round robin with this group, and I want each of them, Corey, Brittany, and Darisha, if you could say when you decided you no longer wanted to work for other people, or I think that's a good way to start it. You decided you no longer wanted to work for anybody else. Darisha.
Funny, I was 25 years old when I decided that. And it's interesting because it's always been something that was budding. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, even when I decided to, at the time, become a doctor. Obviously, that has changed, and I'm grateful for it. But I would say, like, when I decided that I wanted to go in business for myself is when I started to see that although there were people who were doing things similar to what I desired, I knew there was something missing in the marketplace. And it really came with a self-awareness of what my gifts and talents are. A lot of times we kind of say we don't want to really go out there and do something because our goals and our dreams are not big enough, or we compare them to others. And I went through that process of saying, oh, there's already a ton of people out here who are doing this. What do I really bring to the marketplace? But when I decided that I wanted to really hone in on my gifts and talents and realize that I was unique and I was beautifully and wonderfully made, that's when I made the decision to launch out and do something different. And I think it's proven that it's working. And each and every day I evolve and grow into this person, this entrepreneur. And that's something I want to share, is that as an entrepreneur, you'll always evolve. There'll always be seasons where you're finding out more about who you are and what you bring to the marketplace and to your team as well.
Brittany.
So it's so funny. I went into entrepreneurship not even knowing that I come from a family and a line of entrepreneurs. I kind of learned through talking with my grandparents after starting my business that my great granddad, my grandmother, and a few others, my aunt, so many have been entrepreneurs and business owners. And when I walked into this, I was more so pushed into it, and not by my partners, but by my pathway. I too was studying to become a doctor, and so creativity and marketing and branding, none of these things were top of mind at the time. All I knew is that I wanted to help people. And there came a pivotal moment where the rubber met the road and I hit that brick wall, and it was like, this is clearly not my path. Stop fighting what is my path. And so when I finally let go and quote unquote let God, that's when everything started to change for me. That's when the light bulb clicked. That's when I saw how my creativity and my passion, my organization, and all those things, all my gifts, natural inclination and giftings, really were able to come to light. And I want to let people know, don't be afraid to walk in who you are and what you were created to be. There is room for you, room for your giftings, and you can build that table. It's in you.
Corey.
I think for me, I remember clearly when I decided entrepreneurship was for me. But I'll be honest, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always said I'd be some senior vice president, executive vice president of a big firm. That was always what I, had imagined, right? So it was something I really didn't consider until, about 2012, 2013, when I made a real life decision that I couldn't be at a place where I felt like their guiding principles did not align with me, to a place where I felt like I could not flourish. And that's no discredit to what anyone else does, but when you are called to build, when you are called to teach, and it comes to a place where it is such a burning desire for your gifts to show, to be manifested, that you make that conscious decision. And I look at, 8 years later, where we are as a firm, and I think of how much territory we've covered in the U.S., and I think of how much revenue that we bring in to others' lives, right? Through subcontracting, through W-2 employees, through all of these things. And I know that I'm in my right space, that I am exactly where God wants me to be. And when I made that conscious decision, one of my friends says it best. They say, if it's God's will, it's God's bill. And though there are times that are tough, He always takes care of you.
Thank you, ABCD and Company, for sharing with us today. And when we come back after the break, I want to bring in a young woman, Kamika Smith of the Boss Network, who has literally taken time to discover not only her pathway and her passion, but she's bringing so many women along with her. When we're back after the break.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Welcome back, everybody. As you can tell, there is no shortage of millennials discovering their pathway and knowing what it is that they need to do. I want to bring in our guest, Kamika Smith. Now, this is a powerhouse of a young woman, and her story is so unique. And along with her, I also want to bring in Rashonda Dixon. Now, these two ladies hail from one of my favorite cities, Chicago, Illinois. And so, Kamika and Rashonda, welcome to A Balanced Life.
Hi, Dr. Jacquie. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited and elated to have both of you here to share with us. Now, I have to admit, I'm a Southern girl, and you guys are in the Midwest, and you're doing business in a space, in a town that can often be seen as difficult to do business in, but somehow you guys have found a way and an ability to thrive. And I want to start with Kamika, because your situation is unique. Tell us a little bit about how the Boss Network got started.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you, Dr. Jackie, for having me, first of all. My background is in education. I started off here in Chicago working for Chicago Public Schools as an administrator. So I knew that part of my journey would be service. I always wanted to give back. I always wanted to be able to inspire people. And, for me, that journey was working with young people. And through that career, I was also, starting businesses because I had an entrepreneurial spirit. So I knew that, I would want to have businesses on the side. I didn't really think of them as, full-time businesses, but more so hustles is what we call them here in Chicago. And as I was on that journey to, kind of finding my way through my career and, starting my businesses, I was actually laid off. And so I think a lot of people experience that, when they're laid off, trying to figure out, what's next for me.
Mm-hmm. So in thinking of what was next for you, you began a network that guided women to also be able to discover, as we say, turn their side hustle into a legitimate business.
Absolutely.
How do you balance the work that you do each and every day with the women that you work with? Because you find some outstanding women to partner with you, and you are partnering with some great organizations and companies, Prudential, Google, Chase Bank. You're doing so many wonderful things. How do you balance growing your business?
Yeah. So, so to talk about the balance piece, I think it's important to talk about, just my journey into starting the Boss Network. So as I was building my own business, I knew that there were so many other Black women in particular who wanted to start businesses or who were struggling to climb a corporate ladder, all the issues we face as, a Black career or entrepreneurs. And so for me, it was just about creating a platform where we can actually share in a very transparent way some of the struggles that we were having, and then work together as a community to bring forth those resources. So it really is through that community and that connection for the women within the Boss Network. I mean, when we started out, we probably had about 200 women here in Chicago, and now we reach over 200,000 women nationally with our digital platform. And so I think having that community, that support system, it really kind of holds you accountable. And so I have all these leaders in my community of women that I look to for advice and resources. They look to me for advice and resources. We're kind of like, playing tennis, and supporting each other as we're kind of like passing the baton and passing the ball to make sure that we all succeed. So we're like all on this journey together. And I think for entrepreneurs, it's important to have that community of people that can support you on your journey to success. And so for me, that's how I find a balance, is through my tribe.
And that is an extremely a great key and way. And I want to ask Rashonda Dixon, who is there in Chicago as well. And Sean, you started your business, I won't say by happenstance, but you're quite a gifted young lady. Can you share a little bit about your business and how you balance what you do every day?
Actually, thank you, Dr. J. Actually, I also started when I was laid off. I was a lead quality assurance software tester, and the market went soft. And I found myself looking for jobs, and it just wasn't happening. So I've always had hobbies, and my hobbies was paper cutting, making wedding invitations, stuff like that. And that's how I started my first business. And I was initiated into Delta Sigma Theta in 2010. And I started a second business because, of course, I saw the need, and it has grown tremendously. So I started Sorortique, which was a boutique for sorority ladies, and I serviced the Divine Nine ladies. And I have since then expanded to the fraternity side, which is fraternizing with Sorortique. So it's very hard for me to do balance. I know I have two daughters, and they used to be really upset with me because my workspace was the kitchen. And so they had to maneuver through that, but I was always able to make sure I was present for them for any school events, after school activities. And when they went off to college, I was able to just go down and just visit them. So I did the balance part too.
So balance looks different for both of you. You started similarly. And as you're thinking about how you grow the day-to-day aspects of your business, making determinations whether or not you want to get a storefront, if you want to continue to work out of the house, if you need to rent a building from time to time, how do each of you find not necessarily the time, but how do you know when is best to use your finances and to balance that budget to allow for expansion? Kamika?
Yeah, well, I'll definitely start, Dr. Jacquie. I think, having wise counsel is important when you're starting off as an entrepreneur. I was really blessed to have really great entrepreneurs that were successful in business that I looked to as mentors. And then I actually sought out people who I just admired to kind of start building my own personal connections of, smart people, because as they say, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to be in another room. So I always wanted to make sure that I had really smart people around me so that when there was things that I didn't know, I had people to be able to go to. And so for me, I had mentors that told me, you have this great digital platform. What do you need an office space for? You're traveling, several times a month, you're on the road with your brand partners doing events as an influencer, why do you need an office? Is anybody coming in there? And the answer was no. But of course, some of my friends had offices that were business owners. And so, it was like kind of like rite of passage, but I had to realize that's a wasted expense for me. I don't need that. I can have an in-home office. I'm on the road traveling. I can expense my travels. And that's how I do business. So I think that, a lot of times we can't really look at what everyone else is doing. You have to figure out what's your business model and what works best for you.
Those are excellent tips. And I hope that our audience is paying close attention to what everyone is saying, because you need to glean from individuals who are where you're trying to get to. Sean?
So for me, I had to get out of my kitchen. And so I got my first store in 2012, and then I've since expanded. So I'm currently on my third store, which is way bigger than my original store. Each time I've grown, I've noticed that I've always needed to expand, depending on the potential customers that will be coming into my place. I've tried to do the vending, which works for me as well. I also vend in addition to having a storefront, but I've always wanted to have a home base where there are so many people that like to shop online, but there are a lot of people that still like to be in person, feeling the fabrics, and actually coming into the store. So for me, the storefront really works well.
Thank you for sharing that, because I know in this pandemic, it's been difficult for people to decide what it is they needed to do. As we round out this show, I want to share a few things when we come back after the break about how your faith plays a role in how you move forward.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
You dig?
Welcome back, everyone. As you can tell, learning how to balance when running a business is not an easy task. I say this all the time. Being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. You literally have to discover for yourself sometimes what it means to walk your path, then decide who should be in your space, and then allow yourself to breathe and exhale. You see, the state of mind that you should be in as an entrepreneur is one that allows you first to take care of yourself. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're no good for the company, you're no good for the community, and you certainly do not have the capacity to grow and expand and leave a legacy. Because oftentimes, taking a leap of faith gives you that ability to see clearly. You need to leap so that you can launch out to where you are meant to be, so that you can see the horizon and the role that you play. I'm so excited that each of you has joined us for this episode of Pillar to Post here at A Balanced Life.